Joined by our colleagues Pragya, Pradeep as well as Rishabh. Remember, they have been tracking the Ministry of External Affairs as well as the crucial parlays that have been taking place in New Delhi. Pragya, to you first. All of those series of meetings, multiple back-to-back meetings that the Prime Minister was leading, perhaps will be answered today to the nation as to what has been happening and how India achieved its targets under Operation Sindoor.
Absolutely, a very significant, development. In fact, everyone would want to hear Prime Minister. Till now, what we are hearing were from defense forces and their chiefs. But this is a time where people would want to know what Prime Minister has to say. And in fact, the message from the Prime Minister is going to the world when he speaks around 8 today is what we are given to understand. And there are many questions that may be answered in today's Prime Minister's address as to what actually happened, what transpired in those meetings, what was the intent of the government, and what was the defense forces and the political establishment of the country was thinking. In fact, it is very important. We are a democratic country, unlike Pakistan where military dictates. We have to assess many things before taking any actions, and we being peace-loving country, we decided how we decided, when we decided, what are the thinking, what was the thinking behind taking every decision that Prime Minister and all these defense chiefs who were present in those meetings made, along with Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh.
Yes.
So it's a very, very significant, crucial message. Everyone would want to hear Prime Minister what he has to say on Operation Sindoor, and it will also give us direction as to whether there is going to be action against Pakistan. Operation Sindoor continues. What is it that India is going to do? Every hint will be in what Prime Minister is going to say today at 8 p.m.
Absolutely. Pradeep, one of the things that has emerged out of Operation Sindoor is the fact that India has come up with a new security doctrine. New red lines have been drawn as far as the fight against terror is concerned, and that perhaps will be very crystal clear when the Prime Minister addresses the nation at 8 p.m. tonight.
Yes, you're absolutely right, because the new security doctrine that has already been unleashed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that clearly indicates that in future any act of terror will be treated as an act of war. That means that now India will not be giving dossier, now India will not be giving any kind of an evidence. India will straightway go and target the perpetrator, and this time it will not be either Markaz-e-Taiba or Markaz-e-Subhanallah. It will not be Bawalpur, Jaish headquarter or Lashkar headquarter. They will be straightway going for the people who are really sponsoring them, the people who are trying to aid them, abet them, and they are behind them. That means either the Pakistani deep state ISI will be targeted, or they are going to target Pakistan Army headquarters, because that's what actually things have been made clear. How long India is going to suffer because of this Pakistan strategy of bleeding India 1,000 cut. And yes, this address is going to be really very important. At a time when India was really dominating war against Pakistan, everybody started asking one question: what was the reason for all of a sudden ceasefire? So those questions will be answered. Why sudden ceasefire? Why India wanted a truce? Why it was a call of what led? Basically, everybody knows that Pakistan was on knees. Pakistan was simply pleading United States of America for restraint. But because there are people in the country, they felt that this was the time to punish more Pakistan, because it was not, they should not have stopped with 11 air bases. At least they should have gone and attacked almost each and every air base, so that Pakistan had been totally decapitated and they will not have been able to fly their assets and target ever India again. So that's what actually people are thinking. But now I think the Prime Minister will be addressing, he's going to answer each and every question. Because India is a peace-loving country. Definitely India never wanted to escalate this thing. That's clear. India wanted to go after only terror target. That's one thing that has been made clear even during the press conference. But yes, India is mission ready. Even tomorrow, if something really is going to happen, India will not shy away from hitting back Pakistan.
Absolutely, Pradeep. Our armed forces as well as the government have been ready to fight back against terror. Rishabh, to you, you've been covering the Ministry of External Affairs, and this entire Operation Sindoor has seen a synergy not just among the armed forces of the country, but among various ministries under the government of India, whether it's the External Affairs Ministry, the Finance Ministry, the Home Ministry, all of these ministries coming together and making sure that Operation Sindoor achieves its targets. And that perhaps will be demonstrated today when the Prime Minister addresses the nation.
Sure, if we talk about Prime Minister's address, there are three things that we are looking forward to when Prime Minister addresses. First, we have heard it from External Affairs Ministry. We have heard it from the Defence Forces as well. The DGMO, DGAO, DGNO have briefed twice in the last 24 hours, and we have more or less a good understanding about India's offensive as well as defence in the two press conferences that has happened. Now it's time to hear the political side of it. What was political will behind, Operation Sindoor, and how did the government, when I say government, the cabinet, and as Prime Minister being the chief of the cabinet, what was the cabinet's role, what was the cabinet's stand on Operation Sindoor, and how political establishment in this country is looking at Operation Sindoor. We have heard it from External Affairs Ministry, where Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has done multiple press conferences. We have heard it from DGMO, DGAO, DGNO just right now, and also yesterday evening. We haven't heard the political side of it. So the military, the diplomacy, we have heard it. Now it's time to hear the political side of Operation Sindoor, and that is very, very significant. As our senior colleagues Pragya and Pradeep were mentioning, and Executive Editor Madhav was also pointing out, that the political will behind Operation Sindoor and political takeaway from Operation Sindoor will be something that will be on display when Prime Minister speaks at 8. And also remember, in a democracy, Prime Minister's word is the last word. So the world is right now preparing itself for the last word.
Absolutely. It's not just India, Rishabh. The entire world will now be listening very carefully as to what the Indian Prime Minister has to say. Brahmachalani, what are your expectations? You know, there is, of course, a lot of eagerness to listen to the Indian Prime Minister, not just by citizens themselves here, but the entire world as to what has been happening in the past 1 week at least. What are your expectations? What do you think the Prime Minister will be speaking about? Of course, giving out more details of how this operation was carried out.
There's a troubling question confronting the nation. Why did India, under US pressure, abruptly halt a military campaign against Pakistan, just as India's armed forces had seized the upper hand? That's a question that everybody is asking. So when Prime Minister Modi decided to accept a US-brokered ceasefire, he stunned everybody, including his own colleagues. So the nation wants to know what prompted the Prime Minister to abruptly halt a military operation. And I think that's the foremost question that the country expects him to answer that question. That's the first question. But there are other issues as to what he believes Operation Sindoor accomplished, even though the government PR is that Operation Sindoor is continuing. The fact is that the government has announced a stoppage of all military operations, which means a ceasefire. So Operation Sindoor was a military operation. Once you seize all military operations, obviously Operation Sindoor can stay symbolically, but operationally it's not alive.
Okay, Professor Nalapat, you want to come in on this? You know, there has been clarification done by the DGMO saying that it was the Pakistani DGMO who had, called up and asked for cessation of hostilities, and that is why India went ahead. But of course, I also understand the Donald Trump bit where he's announced to the world that there has been a ceasefire that has been agreed to. And, you know, these speculations have been going on, and that perhaps will be laid to rest when the Prime Minister addresses the nation. But there's also, as Rishabh, my colleague, was saying, the political will that has changed this time around. The stance, the approach to fight terror has been changed, and that perhaps will come out today with the Prime Minister's address.
Look, the fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister would have had very, very sound reasons to go ahead with what he did, which is called a halt to operations. Please understand that, from my understanding, Operation Sindoor is not at a stop. Operation Sindoor is basically at an amber light. So at any time, it can be restarted and put back into green. It is not stopped. And the second point, there would be very good reasons why he stopped it at a point in time when Pakistan, frankly, was extremely badly done by the Indian forces. And our armed forces have made it very clear the extent of damage to Pakistani defense infrastructure, and frankly, the relatively small damage done to our infrastructure. And I think the lesson to Pakistan is that, sorry, we have got an overwhelming superiority over you. And of course, the Prime Minister, in his talk with Vice President Vance, made it very clear the only thing India will discuss with Pakistan is the return of POK and nothing else. He made that amply clear. So I'd like to say that the Prime Minister, after all, is the commander of the armed forces de facto.
Okay.
And he would have had very sound reasons to do what he has done.
Yes.
And I'm very certain he will explain those reasons to the people of India and the world.
Absolutely. We will, of course, have those reasons spelled out by the Indian Prime Minister. We'll keep this discussion on the other side of the break. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm slipping into a short break. News and updates will